Hunter, which is north and which is south of the other one? Spain or France?
Isn't Spain lower than France on the map?
Nailed it.
Correct. Shout out to the Andorran mountain range and the tiny country that is Andorra.
We've been recording?
Yes. We're leaving this in.
Okay. Today on the show, we'll talk about Mystics vs. Sky. We'll also talk about the Dream's offensive struggles and more.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are Locked On Women's Basketball. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. My name is Hunter Cruse. I'm your Saturday host covering the WNBA draft and prospect scouting. I'm joined by my co-hosts M. Adler and Shafer. M covers the WNBA with a focus on player development in the game within the game. Lincoln also contributes to our WNBA draft coverage at the Next. So to open up, let's talk a little bit about Mystics versus Sky. There's a lot of directions we can go, but Aaliyah Edwards. What did we see from Aaliyah Edwards in this game? And what did we not see from Angel Reese from a defensive standpoint in those first 2 minutes? She was better. She was better after like that first 2 minute stretch, but those first 2 minutes were really bad.
Right. It comes and it goes, and like it comes more often than it goes. But like, you know, you kind of expect a rookie to do that. The issue is just it sort of came against a rookie, so it's not as easy to give a free pass. And I think in the same way that we do with other rookies. Still been a very positive defender overall, minus the fouling issue this year. So I wouldn't say I'm exactly concerned by it. I think to me it was much more a yay, Aaliyah Edwards is here performance than I have more questions about Angel Reese than I did yesterday sort of deal.
Yeah, Angel kind of just looked exhausted most of that game. And she looked a whole lot better defensively when she was not guarding Aaliyah Edwards, in the second half especially. Aaliyah was just beating her down the floor every single time the first 5 minutes of that game, and just kind of, oh look, I'm wide open at the rim again, and you know that's a great way to score efficiently.
Yeah, and they got a day off, which I guess isn't actually that much. That's how much you're normally supposed to get off, but they play the Dream this evening, and that should be a very favorable matchup for her. I mean, not only Chicago in general, but also Angel Reese. That'll be a good, I think, opportunity for a bounce back defensive game. Given what we've seen so far from her, again, it's been pretty positive, especially against, I think, there were some issues against the Liberty, especially the most recent game, but I think overall there were still enough, I think, positive flashes that it's not something that, like I said, not something to not be excited about in coming games. I will say, though, I actually haven't watched the game that we're currently supposed to be talking about because they were late in uploading it to League Pass somehow. Despite the fact that it was broadcast on League Pass, it was not available on League Pass afterwards for like a day or so.
Woohoo.
Yeah, the
$75 million, baby.
Yeah, the thing with Mystic Sky and then with Angel Reese is I don't really care if a rookie defender is bad, but when they're playing another rookie, that's when it's like okay, But like overall, Angel has been really good defensively. Aaliyah was also really good defensively, I thought, in this game as well.
Wait, was this the second day of a back?
4 blocks.
I know I should probably know this coming into the pod, but was this the second day of a back-to-back after New York, or was that after day off?
For the Mystics, it was their first day of a back-to-back with the Fever.
No,
the
Chicago.
Sky.
This is excellent podcasting material.
Yeah, what day?
Nope, they had a day off in between. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't.
But yeah, Aaliyah defensively, I mean, we've talked about how good she's looked this year just in terms of navigating space. The stock numbers really haven't been there, I think, but they have been. She's been really excellent at deterring a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think that is something that, especially as she gets more minutes with Shakira Austin, continues the load management from the hip injury, and as Aaliyah Edwards just earns more minutes because she's, a rookie earning minutes. I think that those are numbers that'll start to pop more as teams can't kind of funnel themselves away from her. They'll have to go through her, and I think we saw that.
Yeah. Do you know what Kennedy Carter is shooting at the rim this season?
It feels like 67%.
I think it might be higher than that. I'm not gonna lie.
It's probably higher.
65% at the rim. It's
Oh!
the best mark of any guard in the league.
That does not surprise me in the slightest.
Mhm.
Yeah,
She's so quick.
Wait, when you say rim, are we talking about Basketball Reference's stupid 0 to 3 feet, or are we talking about like at rim?
This was synergy at rim.
Oh, alrighty then. Seems good to me.
Yeah, and Julie Van Loo, another player we talked about, was it a couple episodes ago? She's been hit or miss, but the passing. One thing I mentioned to y'all was if she was playing for a good team, she's averaging like 12 assists minimum, probably more.
Mm-hmm.
Like she sets up so much passes, and I think her passing is so good for Aaliyah Edwards' development. Like,
oh my god,
yeah, for
it's
sure.
like perfect.
Julie Van Loo
The Mystics can run out these lineups with so much positional playmaking, where you're they ran out a lineup against the Sky with Jade Melbourne and Emily Angsler on the floor with Aaliyah, and it was incredibly fun. They're just running, they're playing zone, they're just kind of flying around, and they get a lot of length on the floor, and they just do fun things. And I really enjoy watching them.
That is the point.
It's perfect.
Whole lot of fun. Yeah.
It's perfect.
It's an incredibly fun, bad team.
Which is what they want to do. This is like the goal.
Exactly. Yeah. There's great signs from basically all of their players in every game. They have a star-sized hole, as we talked about.
Freezing.
The
thing about Van Loo specifically this year is she reminds me a lot of like maybe not peak, but like just post peak Vandersloot a lot in terms of the off ball shooting, except Van Loo offers I think more on ball shooting. There's I would say less defensive possibility, but the flashiness of the passing, the overall ability to command, the just ability to get the ball wherever she sees the opening or can read the opening. And it's not just fancy passing. Like it's not just Maureen Johannes passing fancy to open players, which like is cool as hell, to be clear. But it is doing these no looks to actually open the pass itself through defenders, over doubles and blitzes, that kind of stuff. She's not driving downhill and commanding the entire offensive structure like Vandersloot used to. But I think that is the only sort of modern comp that really comes to mind for the volume and just proficiency of passing.
Yeah, the other rookie in this matchup was Kamilla Cardoso. Lincoln, what did you see from a passing standpoint from her in this game?
Quick decision making. There were Angel's first buckets. The two of the first three, I think, came from entry pass to Kamilla, and then she sees Angel in the dunker spot on the weak side open because they're sending a double, and she's taller than everyone else on the floor and able to just get that pass in. One of them, she had the ball in her hands for less than half a second. It's basically a volleyball pass to the next spot, and it's that kind of decision making and that kind of passing acumen that made her stand out sometimes at South Carolina. She's throwing these massive two-hand over-the-head soccer passes across to the weak side corner. She's just a very good passer for her position, and that's something that's very important for the Sky team who, let's just say they struggle with spacing, especially when Marina Mabry is not in the game. It gets bogged down, and when you have a big who can draw to and make plays out of double teams, that's going to be massive for your offense at any point.
Yeah, you mentioned spacing. In segment 2, we'll talk about the Atlanta Dreams offense. With PrizePicks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports team this summer. If you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has you covered every week, from lowering select players' stats projections on Tuesdays, which increase your chances of winning, to getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. The finals means more with PrizePicks, but so do the star players. You get boosted payouts on select basketball stars that you won't find anywhere else. When the finals are over, hoops action doesn't stop on PrizePicks. From Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese to Asia Wilson and Brianna Stewart, you can win up to 100 times your cash with Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, so for segment 2, the Atlanta Dream's offense. I wrote a full story on this at the Next. The Atlanta Dream running the fewest pick and roll of any team since the greatest team ever, the 3-31 Tulsa Shock in 2011.
Hey, that's Cheryl Swoop's 2011 Detroit Shock team.
19-year-old
Move on.
Liz
Move on.
Cambage.
Move on from
19-year-old
this.
Liz Cambage.
They had some names on that team. Yeah, but
Didn't they also have They had Chastity Melvin on that team, I think, too. They had who was the first player from MTSU whose name I'm forgetting?
Oh,
She played 2 years and she was like a locker room nightmare.
great.
Man, this is
Tulsa Shock.
this
That's
is
a good
making
podcast
for,
name.
this is making for this is excellent content right now.
Reminiscent
Amber
of
Holt.
2011.
Yeah, Amber Holt. What a
Oh,
nightmare. Yeah. They also had Akeem's, I think, sister. Chastity
Lennox?
Reed, Andrea O'Reilly. God, I
What a
love this team
team.
so much.
The WNBA should apologize to the state of Oklahoma.
And Betty. I mean, who doesn't love Betty?
Yeah. WNBA, like the original journey, came from Betty Lennox, drafted like 4 times in various dispersal and expansion drafts.
She was like an all WNBA, I think, second team like her first year, and then was like, all right, I'm done with this. I'm just gonna go be Aerial Powers. And everyone was like, who is Aerial Powers? She's not even born yet. This is my official fanfic. Thank you for coming and listening to our Saturday pod.
Yeah, but the Atlanta Dream's offensive strategy was to bring in Tina Charles at the 5. This meant they moved over Cheyenne Parker to the 4, moved Nia Coffey to the bench, and what I was able to uncover with some research for this article was Atlanta's best offensive lineup last year was when they had Nia Coffey at the 4, Cheyenne Parker at the 5.
I was able to uncover that just by watching basketball.
Yeah, but the stats don't lie.
We're just built different. Eye test, baby. I'm all about the eye test.
But Atlanta decided to change that up this year, changing up what was working. They went bigger in the front court, less shooting, and it's not been great. They're playing at a slower pace. They are the second worst offense.
Tina Charles is a jump shooter, though. What's the issue?
I
say leadingly.
Right block fade, left block hook. Let's go.
See, the issue is they actually could run some pick and pop stuff. Like they could actually have her shoot, but they just don't.
Yeah, the thing is, like, the skill that really, I think, elevated Tina Charles beyond what, like, her skill set and pretty, like, historically mid scoring efficiency is relative to her usage. The thing that, like, elevated her and, like, was, like, and made it so that there was clearly untapped, I think, potential there for most of her prime was that she's such a goddamn great passer for a big. And Atlanta's like, what if we just made fewer passes? What if that worked?
It's the offense is
it doesn't.
Yeah, there's no reason that a team with Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard should have basically the worst offense in the league. Like last year, this is the worst offense in terms of offensive rating. Like it's just because the Mystics have been this bad so far this year. Very awful offense with having like 2 all-star elite wing shot creators. Like
last year they were, I believe, first or second in transition frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what their transition frequency is this year? This isn't a leading question. I'm curious.
I'm pretty sure it's like 10th.
Jesus.
That is not what you're looking for.
And Tanisha Wright said it was like a change in analytical approach. Like
the change in analytical approach was to go with worse offense.
I mean,
yeah.
Can you actually explain that to me? Because I've read that quote like 4 times at this point, and I don't understand what she's saying.
I think she's saying that they brought in more talent, and it's changing how they're doing things. Like they're basically putting talent over what's actually gonna fit together, and Cheyenne Parker Tyus wanted to play the 4, so they did right by her, putting her at the 4 when she's better at the 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like having her at the 5 opens up more space for her post-ups, which makes her more effective on offense. But her at the 4, she's got Tina Charles defender helping over, and it's like
Tina Charles help defender. Yeah, and
it's
Tina was
such a bad offense.
Yeah, what's especially weird about that is Tina is someone who, like, in sort of modern day parlance or modern day lineups, would, you know, sort of beat your 5 and you'd work around that if she was, you know, if you were drafting her again, she was as good as she was in her prime. But even like in those days, I mean, obviously part of it was playing for Bill Laimbeer, but she was also usually sort of playing the 4 because they would put, you know, they play her with Kia Stokes, they play her with inserts New York center here because they're mostly forgettable, and I forgot who was playing alongside her. But like, you had
Swords
redacted. You have that dynamic, and then what they do in Atlanta is the opposite. They're like, all right, here's a 4, we'll move her to the 5. Here's our 5, move her to the 4. They're both really like 5s, I think. And I don't know if I or you had written about this anywhere last year, but you know, there are those limits you have inherently to your offense and your defense when you have someone like Cheyenne Parker at the 5. But you work around those in different ways, and this is not quite working around those, I think. What was the most surprising thing for you in writing this?
I would say the most surprising thing was just the fact that both Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard's usage is down this year, and I just don't think that should not be the case.
Is it good when your third-year star player who just made an all-star team is now being used less?
It's not great. The last 3 games, her usage is like lower than 20%, and they lost 2 of them.
Didn't Ryan open her playoff career by like scoring 20 points in a quarter or something?
Yeah, she set the record, I think, for like most points in her playoff debut, and she's getting like 11 shot attempts per game in the last couple of games. It's like,
this is basically
this wing you traded multiple first-round picks for, and the movement shooter that you drafted first overall. They should get less usage.
This is like the reverse of what they did with like Angel under Marianelle. How the hell do you pronounce her name? Marianelle Meadors. Like a decade and a half ago, where they got Angel McCautry and they were like, all right, now we're going to give her all of the usage, and we'll see what happens then. But they just kept doing that. This is the exact opposite.
Do you think Atlanta's going to run pick and roll when Jordan Canada gets back?
I pray that they do.
That's
all evidence has pointed to there being no reason for them to do so.
She's led the league last year in pick and roll frequency.
Well, she played for Kurt, who injects pick and rolls for fun in his spare time.
And it worked. It was really, she had her best season of her career.
Well, I mean, there were a lot of other factors going into it. Like Seattle ran her. I mean, she was leading pick and rolls in Seattle. That wasn't like the pure difference, but like, yeah, I mean, if her three-point shooting last year was like just sort of a fluke, which I don't necessarily think it was, but if it was, oh boy.
Atlanta's going to have like one shooter on the court.
Does this mean the Crystal Dangerfield is probably falling out of the rotation entirely? So they're still just going to have one guard in the entire rotation? I guess 2 AP.
Yeah, wings.
You got to pick between
Nia Coffey
Powers
too as
and
a
Crystal
guard.
Dangerfield.
Nia Coffey put in the shooting guard.
Player at the 4, it worked. Now she's in like a massive slump.
Even Derek Fisher played her at like the 4.5. She played the 4-5 in her breakout season for LA, and now we have her.
She's so good at the 4.
I know she's extremely switchable. And
Atlanta
had excellent help side defender.
I wrote about it last year, but before she was injured, Atlanta was playing like they were one of the best defenses in the league, and their offense was also like not bad either.
No, they were like second in defensive rating and like first in transition pace before she got injured. Transition frequency before she got injured.
Yeah, so do we think Atlanta?
But think about it this way: what if they have Paige Beckers? I'm kidding. Washington lost its 11th straight in a row. They are going to have the outright number 1 odds.
Does Atlanta even have their pick? What year is that?
I think they traded next year's pick. 2 across the timeline.
Because I know they traded some picks.
They did, in fact, trade some picks. No, Washington. Oh, God.
Washington has their
Washington
pick, don't they?
has it.
I think they're still going to be a playoff team.
The Mystics are so getting Paige Beckers. I forgot Washington had Atlanta's pick. Oh, they're gonna walk away with like Paige and Raven.
That'd be so sick.
Gosh.
Paige. Oh God.
Paige and like some wing.
I was gonna say Janiyah, but she's a 4, and they're already full on those. Please don't turn into the dream like Money Mike won't do this to us.
Yeah.
Olivia Miles and Paige Beckers.
They got that pick in the
Sanaya Rivers
Suarez trade.
Yes, Sanaya Rivers to take over for Brittany Sykes. Ejected.
Jeez.
This is the content you come here for on the day of our Lord Saturday when I've gotten 4 hours of sleep.
Yes, after the break, we'll talk about some other thoughts around the W. All right, so I know Lincoln wanted to get into some sophomore data on who the best sophomores are in the league.
I suggested that the topic for this episode be second-year players because we talked about player development and scouting.
That's true. But I'm giving Lincoln credit.
Come on.
No, give him the credit. I didn't do anything with this.
I'm out of here.
Open WNBA.com/stats.
That's research.
Yeah. That's what I do.
The research is going to play-by-play stats and then asking you guys who the best 10 lineups of the past 5 years have been.
That was rude. Like,
You're just stupid that you couldn't get some of them.
I don't even remember what the bit was.
You somehow could not remember like multiple years that the Connecticut Sun made the finals.
Yeah, I know. I don't think about those teams.
You don't think about Alyssa Thomas enough, clearly.
Less than a lot of people.
Unfortunately.
More
Anyway,
than a lot of people.
Anyway, second-year players. Lincoln, talk about Maddie Seegers.
Yeah, Maddie Seegers has been really good this year. She has kind of moved into the starting lineup with Satu Sabali and then also Natasha Howard out. She's been playing really solidly. She's leading all sophomores in points per game. That was at 13 before last night. And she was also shooting 29% from 3 before last night. Now she's averaging 14.3 points per game and 35% from 3. So we're still in the point of the season where one game can change a lot. But she's shown a lot of the things that we were excited about that she showed at Villanova, mostly put ball in hoop, which is something she's very good at. She's able to create for herself in the mid-post. She's improving as a spot-up shooter. It's still a little bit slow. The defense has been perfectly fine, and she's kind of just operating as their kind of de facto second option sometimes right now behind Arike. And it's working for them. She was 9 for 11 from the field last night and just scored very efficiently.
Her shot chart right now is
on
hilarious.
basketball.
Her shot chart right now is hilarious. A full third of her shots are coming within. We're using basketball reference because it's easier, even though it's sort of weird shot distance breakdowns. But she is taking over a third of her shots from within 3 feet of the basket. She's taking 2/3 of her shots within 10 feet of the basket, and she's taking like almost none of her shots in the long mid range. Here's what she's shooting by zone: 76% within 3 feet, 50% from 3 to 10. 58% from 10 to 16, 50% from the long mid-range, and 35% from 3.
Seems good to me.
It's pretty solid. The cutting is, I think, absolutely there. Obviously, a lot of these are coming off, especially at the rim. A lot of these are coming off putbacks. A lot of these are transition layups. But even so, in the half court, I'm going to pretend that I looked at the stats and that they're good because it feels like they are. But it certainly does feel like she is absolutely scoring at will. She gave the Sun hell this week. Or last Sunday.
Yeah. Some other second-year players that I want to shout out. Natasha Mack, mostly, who technically counts as a second-year player, despite being 26 years old and drafted in 2021, I think. Just has been very good as the starting center for the Phoenix Mercury. She's not scoring the ball at a high level. She was never going to be asked to score the ball at a high level, but she's averaging 7 rebounds and 2 assists per game and only half a turnover per game. She's been really good defensively, really solid, setting a whole bunch of screens all over the place, really just doing what is asked of her at a high level.
Yeah. Shout out to me, shout out to Peter Kilkelly, and shout out to everyone else who knew from the very beginning that Natasha Mack was going to be the best center in the 2021 draft class. It was obvious at the time. By the way, she ranks second in the league in block percentage and second in the league in assist to turnover ratio, while ranking just outside the top 10 in foul efficiency. Is that good? We knew it'd be good because she's a great defender. I mean, she's a very good defender. She's not a great defender. Other second-year players, Hunter, you want to talk about Haley Jones for a couple minutes? Maybe a rant?
Haley Jones, Haley Jones,
I'll ask you, is it her fault?
No. Partially, no. Partially, yes. I would say the no and not being her fault would be she is being set up to play point guard, but create with no screen and create, like, basically in isolation and try to, like, get downhill and, like, make stuff happen whenever she doesn't have good bursts. It's something we mentioned in our draft profile on her. That's not, like, the intrigue with her. It's whenever she has, like, a whole like, full court to get up steam, and she can get it to a pretty nice top speed from there. But creating downhill in a half court, her burst, her first step isn't phenomenal. So she doesn't get to the rim, which allows the defense to just play one-on-one. The dream, you could then end up taking some tough mid-range 2, late shot clock, and that's been their problem there. But Haley Jones with a ball screen has actually been very successful whenever they run it, but they don't do it often. They don't run pick and roll ever often. So she's being set for failure. And I think another thing for her last year was they were making her defend the point of attack, which has never really been, like, her best defensive skill. She's been more off ball over the last couple of games. She's been pretty good, I think, honestly. Like, she's got the length, she's got the size to defend Benai Jelani off ball, and closing out on shooters, she's pretty good at that. So I think Tanisha Wright's done really good on that front. But on offense, Atlanta's offensive scheme is just not great for most of their players, which I think is like the opposite of what a scheme should be. I think this isn't college, where a lot of college coaches will have their scheme and their players have to fit the scheme instead of, like, molding their scheme around the players, like we saw Dawn Staley do last year at South Carolina. Like, that's what you should be doing to maximize your players.
Well, thankfully, there's no overlap between the skill issues, not the skill issues, the scheme issues, which is sort of a skill issue, in Atlanta, and questions over former Gamecocks and their playing time there. Speaking of second-year players who definitely aren't Gamecocks, Lincoln, Jordan Horston?
Very fun defender. Does things, makes plays, flies around, turns the ball over a lot, but, kind of
So
expected.
much.
So much. Crazy.
But, she
there are at least a lot of good
does things. Yeah, she does things. She makes things happen, which is not something that can be said of all the people who play the 3 for the Seattle Storm this season. The scoring is less disastrously bad efficiency than last year.
Mm-hmm.
And she just is, like, coming along defensively. She leads all sophomores in steals and also is top 5-ish in blocks. And that's just, her defensive playmaking is something that really pairs well with especially Ezzy Magdagor. And they just are wreaking havoc defensively.
Mm-hmm.
The Storm have won, I think, 6 in a row now. So watch out, Seattle's coming.
Yeah, she's somewhat. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say she actually leads the league in steal rate.
Yeah, I was gonna say it. And I'm pretty sure she was, like, way up there in steal rate last year too. Like, she was like second or something.
She was 5th.
I'm realizing now that I should have said a storm is coming. So
thank you for listening to. Okay, Grace Berger. Looks like I'll comment. Looks like the confidence that I think we were excited by in the scoring package last year hasn't really maintained itself, which is I think, understandable given the context of her minutes, and I think the context of the minutes, she should be getting more minutes. Yeah, she should be getting more minutes as a second-year player who, showed positive signs last year, just both for growth, for confidence, etc. But I understand they're in a position, with sides with that guard rotation, they're in a position where it's just hard to get the minutes across when you have Wheeler, who is one of the only players that at least has some veteran savvy enough to slow the ball down at times when it needs to be slowed down and push when it needs to be pushed. You have Berger and Hull occupying incredibly polar opposite roles. If they were one player, they would get a solid number of minutes a game and probably play every game. It's just hard as it is. Indiana, I think, definitely looks like they'll be in a market for consolidation trade sooner rather than later, which isn't a bad thing. There's still definitely hope, I think, for what Berger and what Hull can bring, just in a different context where they're allowed to be set up there.
Yeah, that's the problem when you have so many young players that all need minutes. They're all around the same age, and they play similar positions. That's going to be the issue with
trust the process.
Before we get out of here, the only other second-year player who's actually playing real minutes and doing real things. Why does Aaliyah Boston's defense, I think, has really come along the past couple weeks. It was a slow start to season, but I think she's been, not like a roll 7, roll 8 necessarily the past couple weeks, but I think we're at least in the very good Bree Jones kind of territory here. The short roll passing, I think, is continuing to improve. I talked to her this week about that. She actually seemed a lot less, I shouldn't say concerned. She said it was a lot less of an adjustment, I think, than any of us would have probably guessed it would be for her. Just she feels like there's not really much of a change there from how it was in South Carolina, just in terms of what she's demanded to process, which I find interesting. We'll see how that goes. Have you guys figured out why her post scoring is is just real mid after how good it was last year? Because I haven't been able to figure it out.
I believe it is. I believe it is the second worst finishing numbers of any player besides Angel Reese. I think of bigs.
And it's not just bad luck. It's these shots just are just somewhat uncompetitive.
Yeah.
Where last year she was banking them in. Do you think defenders just reading her moves better, or what's going on? Because I haven't.
If I had an answer, I'd probably have a better job than I do.
Judging by our hit rate on mock drafts, I think even if we did better, we still wouldn't be employed.
Mock drafts, we do mock drafts a lot.
You know what I mean? Get us out of here.
Honest, that's the one skill though I wouldn't be too worried about with Aaliyah. I feel like she's gonna figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, me too. It's weird.
It is weird. It's under 50%. She was second best post player last year besides Brittany Griner and scoring the post.
Sounds right. It was those were the only two high volume, decent efficiency. Obviously, it was well about decent, but those are the only two volume efficiency post scorers left in the league.
Yeah, we believe in Aaliyah though. It wouldn't surprise me if she's got that up. She got that up in by 10%, 5-10% in the next couple weeks. But thanks for my Locked On Basketball, your first listen every day. Join the team back next week for continued coverage of the WNBA. Make your second listen Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone.